Hi guys. First of all, just want to open up with a quick question for you all, which is how many of you monitor your screen time on your mobile phone? You know, last year when Apple and Android started to release the functionality, does anyone here do it? Can you show hands? So people are starting to be a little bit more conscious about their digital health. For me personally, it's only going up. Right, which is the opposite of the way you want it to go. I want to spend more time with the people in my life. I'm spending more time online. Why is this? This is sort of a circular effect, really. Hyper-contextualized, hyper-personalized advertising is making my experience much more unique, much more relevant to me, and therefore I'm engaging more in it. At the same time, behind that, there's a huge body of technology that is working, which is artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence has been around for 50 years. For those of you who've been here the last couple of days, you will have heard many times talks about AI, ML, etc. But why has it suddenly come to play in the last couple of years that we are spending much more time in the digital world and we're generating ever greater volume of data? Just as a sort of a benchmark, right now, we're sending 65 billion WhatsApps a day. We're sending 300 billion emails a day. And if anybody can explain to me the magnitude, they get a beer from me afterwards, but we're estimated to be producing 463 exabytes of data. Now, exabyte, I think, is 1,000 billion bytes. If anyone can correct me, I will buy them a beer. To put it in context, for every byte, there's more bytes in 1 exabyte than there are stars in the observable universe. So we're creating huge amounts of data. This creates opportunities, issues, privacy issues. And today we've got two fantastic technical leads from here in Spain, two leading lights. Despite maybe their names and their accents, they are Spanish CTOs. And they're going to give us a bit of an insight into what it takes to scale a business within advertising, really how to deploy AI at scale and to create meaningful consumer journeys for their clients and also more meaningful interactions for us in the digital world. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Paul Goldbaum, who's the CTO of SeedTag, which is an in-image advertising platform. It started here in Spain, in Madrid 5 years ago, now live in 7 countries. And I'm also going to introduce Bill Murphy, who's the CTO of Orbital Ads, which focuses on a slightly different problem, which is search engine marketing. So we're going to dig into these two particular use cases, and we're also going to discuss the major trends that are affecting advertising and where we think AI might take us in the future. So please give a warm round of applause to our two main speakers. Okay, guys, Paul Goldbaum and Bill Murphy, not very Spanish names, right? And they've got cracking English accents as well. So guys, I'd just like to hear from the two of you, first of all, if you explain to the audience, just put in context what you guys do, what you've built, the problems that you're focusing on. So Paul, perhaps we start with you.
SeedTag is an in-image advertising company. We work with some of the biggest publishers in the web across the 7 different countries that we operate in, and we offer them this new capability of monetizing their images by giving them a way to place ads on top of them. The offering is that we give this very stunning visual creatives, new kind of innovative formats and very targeted, contextualized advertising that's completely different to what they're used to doing.
Okay, and for yourself, Bill?
Okay, at Orbital Ads, what we're doing is basically bringing the latest trends and breakthroughs in technology like machine learning, NLP, and everything underneath that to a very traditional sector. Not traditional sector, but something that's been done by hand for the last 19 years, which is the analysis and management of keywords inside SEM campaigns, which is kind of you're targeting what kind of keywords you want to appear your ads. And that's basically what we're doing, kind of breaking through with new technologies, a traditional area in ads.
So I think there's 2 formats here. We've got a business that works with images, the visual commerce is a huge trend at the moment. And we also have text, which for any one of us, we spend a lot of our time in Google search, right? Or few of us maybe use Bing or Yahoo. But within Google search engine marketing is really fundamental to every business at every size, right? So I think we were talking earlier on, and you were saying that in 20 years, this hasn't progressed as a discipline and that people are still using Excel. If you think of a small business who's maybe targeting here in Madrid, that's fine. But when you get up to larger scale businesses who are running campaigns in multiple languages, that's a huge challenge. How do you really solve that for them? And what's the technology behind that enables you to do that?
Yeah, as you said before, the complexity of data and the volume of data is growing every single day. SAM campaigns are also linked to that growth and complication on how you manage things. What we've done is bringing the analysis of keywords, something that only a human could do before, to computers. Computers now can understand words, translate them into numbers, into zeros and ones, and based on that make decisions. So that's kind of what we're working with and developing. Algorithms that are able to translate those keywords into numbers, see the relation between numbers, and make decisions. All the technology we're developing is language agnostic. One of the use cases I used to tell is that one of our clients runs campaigns in Japan, and the first time we executed the algorithms recommended words in Japanese. It was just a bunch of symbols. No one understood in the company what they meant, so we had to translate them and make sure it makes sense. We sent it to a client, and it seemed to work. But since we're working with characters and translating that into numbers, our latest case is that one of the algorithms recommended an emoji. That was crazy. We were like, what? Is this going to work? Is it not? We asked the client, is this okay with you? And he said, sure, if it's going to work. That emoji, the first day, brought 20 conversions. So turning words into numbers, analyzing and algorithmically making decisions on behalf of our clients is a really performance booster for them and for their revenue. It's something very interesting. And so,
I mean, Paul, in terms of SeedTag, you also have a large machine learning capacity behind. We talk about machine learning, machine learning is a model. You have to train the model. You need a data set to train the model. So from when you guys started, how did you start to build that intelligence into the model? And maybe give us an idea of the scale that you're at right now and how that helps you build a competitive advantage.
So just to put it a bit into perspective, like our machine learning capabilities are a lot in line with what Bill was just telling. So we analyze a lot of what's happening on each and every website. We understand very fundamentally what's being talked about on every page, what's happening there. And yeah, that obviously poses a lot of challenges, of technical challenges. We did start out, like our first learnings was to not try to make these massive data sets with thousands of articles or of data points, because that would be completely impossible for a small team like ours, to extract information from that. It was more about being very intelligent about what kind of data we extracted, how we would treat that data, making sure that we're using also machine learning during the training phase to augment our capabilities. This made us be able to build something very small and start building from there to going from just one language, for example. We started out just in Spanish, and then bring this over to the 7 different languages that we have today. So very important there was to be very intelligent about where we were applying machine learning and start growing from there. And you get this traction, you start to grow, and then you end up building this very big machine which understands 7 languages like a human, pretty much.
I would like to follow up on that a little bit. As we've seen it, and any mathematician can tell you this, making algorithms that work with huge data sets is much easier than algorithms with small data sets and making decisions based on small data sets. So it's kind of very important what you said is getting those data, making the right decisions with very little data, and then extending it to larger data sets. And if you solve and crack the key on making good decisions with very little data, you can extend that and scale it, and that's a huge point. Knowing to work with small data sets and extending it.
I think you mentioned before that SeedTag is now processing close to 4 billion page views on a monthly basis, and you're continuously running in real time. The classic sort of technical question here is, did you ever believe that it would be that big? Did you build it to be that big? No. What were for the CTOs that are in the room, if there are any, what are the challenges that you face when you're trying to reach that scale?
Yeah, we only dreamt of this becoming that big, but we had to be a bit rational. You don't start out, building things to be that big, or you're just gonna get, pressed down by the whole weight of this. So you start out small. You start with a system that you can, change very frequently, very easily. Do things that don't scale. You've all heard that. And then start building from there. So in the beginning, it was like everything was focused to be very manual, to be, supervised by us, And then as we started to see product market fit, and we saw this, this nice trend of the curve going up. It was like, hey, I think we got something here. Let's prepare for this. And that was the point where we really started out thinking about what this would look like long term, thinking in terms of scale, thinking in terms of where we're going to be 5 years from now. So yeah, now the whole system is completely built, and all the challenges regarding the massive amount of traffic that we have, the very tight millisecond latencies that we have to support to not impact user experience. These machine learning algorithms which have to run with these amazing amount of information. All that now is in the place of being able to handle that kind of load, but it wasn't designed out initially that way, but rather transitioned into that as we started growing.
It's funny because our consumer behaviors are changing, right? And we change in function to the way that we are advertised too. So there's almost like a feedback effect, right? I react better to images because you're better serving the images to me. Yeah. So the model is able to grow. I wanted to return back to a comment you made about languages before and the rise of the emoji, right? So it's quite recently been announced that WhatsApp is opening up for advertising purposes. And if you're like me, you maybe have started to use your Facebook account less and less, but WhatsApp's the first thing you open in the morning, and you're certainly on Instagram throughout the day. So I wanted to ask a little bit about the duopoly, right, between Google in terms of search, Facebook just in terms of data. How do you guys approach working with them? They've been considered in many spheres as frenemies, right? So friends that you have to get close to, but also enemies because they're eating market share from everybody. So how do you position yourselves with them?
Apart from Facebook, Google, there's also Amazon, Twitter, AliExpress. There's huge players. And a key point of building a product and data-driven marketing product, you have to kind of think global. You have to think of new players. You don't know in 3 years who's going to be the third biggest player or the fourth biggest player, and you probably want to have a product that works with those platforms. You also have the risk of them taking over, doing something similar to your product. So you being CTO, my point of view, and I think we share this, is delivering value from a technical point of view, making kind of agnostic to any platform, and if you're able to build a good platform, that platform can adapt to whatever comes, to whatever new trends, new products these platforms bring. So you kind of have to think in the next 6 months and next year and what will come in 3 years, 5 years constantly, and see what's coming to market, other players, what they're bringing and what value, and just keep on focusing on bringing real value from your product and extending it as fast as you can. One of the things we have inside our company, for example, is iterating every week. We have very short sprints, which is how you work with different teams, and they're a week long. So whatever you get in that week done is great. Bigger projects don't have scope for that, so you have to build everything to smaller pieces. Those pieces have to add value, have to be good for sales, have to be good for clients, have to be good for the overall company. So I think it's just focusing on what's coming and delivering very fast.
Yeah, would you agree?
Yeah, so in our case, our relation with them is kind of similar but different. So as you might know, it's called a duopoly because they're pretty much managing 80% of the, or 50, no, not that much, but a whole big chunk of the advertising dollars. So we're at the point, every player in the industry who really wants to reach some scale, actually has to find a way to play along with these guys, because the advertising dollars, the agencies a lot of them are pretty locked up using them. So you have to find a way to interoperate with them. That's sometimes easier and sometimes not that easy, because they know their position and they're not willing to give it up. So sometimes you're very limited in what you can do and can't do to get to work with an agency who's, for example, logged in with Google. So yeah, in our experience is we try to have a close relationship with them. We try to be have a fluid communication with them and try to solve issues and stuff. But most of the times we're finding this to be a very hard position that pretty much every advertising company or ad tech company is finding itself in when it's in relation with Google or with Facebook.
You mentioned a little bit there about the agency relationship, right? So many people here today might have some people from agencies. We talk about the future of data-driven advertising. A lot of you will think, when we think of advertising, of Mad Men, right? Netflix, 1950s, sipping whiskey in the boardroom, a little bit of creative on the board. But what we see here is it's more math men, right? Math men and Mad Men.
Totally the Mad Men guy.
You're a Mad Men guy. But yeah, what I wanted to ask was, like, how open are agencies to working with new technology? My own background, I worked with WPP for 3 years, and I saw varying results from different agencies as to how open they were to new technologies, how stubborn they were as well, trying to retain client contracts for themselves, things like non-transparent margins, which affect the industry in a negative light. So, I think it'd be interesting to hear how you work with agencies, and in general, how product businesses work with agencies and essentially try and enable or disintermediate them, because that really is the future of advertising, right?
Yeah. So in our case, agencies, so for me, they're like a catalyst for innovation in respect to the brands, right? So in our case, we work very closely with them, both our sales teams, operations teams, creative teams, design, are always in a very direct relation with them, because it's really important that we bring these. If you get these guys on board, if you really show them something that adds value and that's different from what brands have done in the past, then they can be a great ally, to get your product in front of the client, show what you can do, bring them new ideas, because they're, as you mentioned, they're a lot in touch with different vendors. They're doing a lot of different things at the same time. So in our case, they're great allies. We try to be also very close with them and go together as a team, two brands, and work on that relation together and really, innovate as a team.
I'm not that close to agencies, but of course agencies are a huge player in marketing, and you have to work along with them. I'm going to rewind a little bit, and traditionally agencies have not been very innovative and very close, not very transparent. Transparency is coming everywhere, and it's a must. That technology brings that, and data is there, and a lot of people are more and more interested in seeing their data and seeing the results, seeing where every cent is spent, and what's happening with their overall budget. So the good thing is that agencies have not embraced technology, or they've embraced it through acquisitions and in different areas. So bringing the latest in technology is a huge point. So agencies feel the need of delivering products like ours that are very relevant, very new, very analytical, and performance-wise, they're very clear what they're bringing. So we're seeing agencies coming close, wanting to offer our product, and we see that we will have relation with them. And also we see a shift sometimes, and I think this is like cyclic, like where big startups, big companies start to do their agency-related task, or at least SEM-related task in-house. They want to learn how to work with the platforms, what to deliver, how to set up their campaigns, because every time it's more tied to all their acquisition funnel. So sometimes working with agencies is not that easy. I guess this trend will change as agencies renew their offering and how they work, but it's also cyclic.
I mean, the topic here is the future, right? Do you see AI replacing outright agencies? For example, WPP has something like 200,000 people working around the world. I would doubt that many of them are data scientists or product guys. Is this one of the sectors where we will see artificial intelligence displacing account managers, marketing managers? You're nodding your head. You're nodding your head. So is that yes?
yes.
Yeah, we're not
No, we're not saying yes.
No, I think the sooner we all accept that we're all going to be replaced by algorithms, the better off we're all going to be. It's going to happen eventually, for everyone. At this point, I think that there's still, like, we're in a stage, or the trend that I see, like, in the near future is AI as a way of augmenting, human capacities, understanding things that would be much more difficult to understand without AI, understanding their targets, understanding what's happening in real time in massive amounts, through massive amounts of data. So it's more of augmenting the capabilities of the operator, the driver behind the wheel, helping them make better decisions, but there still has to be, this human component in the end who will get that information and take, the best decisions. Creativity is, at least for now, a more human, thing. So yeah, I think that component, at least for now, it's definitely.
I have to interject and say that Lexus, I don't know if any of you saw it last year, but Lexus actually ran their first campaign where the creative was made by artificial intelligence. So they trained a model watching the last 15 years of automobile creative advertising, and they generated a script, and they filmed it exactly as the AI proposed. So I would argue that creativity is not purely a human thing anymore, unfortunately.
I would go with what you said. A lot of us studied algebra in school, and most of us forgot it. Computers are very good at that, so let them do those decisions. Crossing data, Excel has its limitations. So products like ours, what they do is extend the capabilities of making decisions, of extending that data to a point humans can't do it. So this is the immediate future, and IE will evolve, and what the idea is that humans will be necessary to run campaigns, to understand business needs, to have creativities, to have other areas, but what computers are taking over is tasks that are very labor expensive. Yeah. So agencies probably will shift down in size or go towards data scientists and engineers instead of more administrative positions.
I wanted to ask, we have a few minutes left here. In terms of changing consumer behavior, because this is what drives advertising, right? You try and affect it, but you also respond to it. Where do you see the new frontier in consumer behavior, where artificial intelligence could take hold that presently it's maybe slightly undiscovered?
I think this has a lot to do with how people interact with technology and how that is evolving, right? So we've seen a big shift when we've gone from PCs to mobile devices, and this will continue, with as technology evolves, as we go with more, intelligent things around us, intelligent gadgets around us.
The smart home, you mean?
Smart home, okay. Wearables, VR, connected TV, all those kind of things, new technologies that are, closer to us now, will shape how the amount of data that we have about users, about consumers, and also the way that we approach them, and the impact that we have. So it's really interesting to understand or to think about how we can approach them, and what new forms of interaction with the user these new technologies are gonna open up as we move into the future and these technologies become more ubiquitous. So yeah.
I would also say that technology is much further away than society. Society is not yet ready for a lot of areas of technology and evolution. So introducing different areas is going to be complicated at work, but it's step by step. So we have to figure out how to embrace technology into organizations, into companies, into day-to-day. And this is one of the main challenges a lot of data-driven companies are facing, how to introduce that, how to introduce it to your all the decision makers, then to all the people working in the company. That's one of the big areas to treat.
In my own role at Ara Ventures is deep tech VC early stage based out of Madrid. We're pretty sector agnostic, right? So we look at advertising, marketing, cybersecurity, fintech, really always looking for something that has a deep technological advantage, where the competitive advantage is based in the technology. And certainly when we try our best to keep up with changing consumer behaviors, to think about where the opportunity might be. And one of the biggest things that we've seen is voice, right? The smart speaker in our home, we think that we're just talking to Alexa, but actually we're just building their data set for them. So we think that there's a huge opportunity in programmatic advertising, certainly as well around the rise of new forms of media, podcasts in particular. You have hyper-focused audiences, maybe only 1,000 or 2,000 people listening to a podcast, but they will have the exact same demographic. So the men between 30, 35 who love gardening in the mountains, and there's a podcast for them. And the brands that want to reach them will not go to the conventional channels, they will go to podcasting. So delivering that advert in a programmatic way using artificial intelligence is a trend that we think is happening, it's starting to take off, and we think that we will all be sort of at their will, their beck and call in the coming years. I'd like you all to put your hands together. Today we've tried to cover in 30 minutes some of the trends affecting advertising. Also, it's great to have two CTOs from here in Madrid who are building category-leading businesses, which says a lot for Madrid and is what South Summit's all about. So I'd like you all to give them a big hand and hope you enjoy the rest of your time.